Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 207. And today is a special Ask Me Anything episode. I hope that this becomes a recurring episode that we can do, maybe quarterly, more often. I love answering your questions. This came about through an anonymous survey that I did. But before we get to the questions, before we get into the background, I do want to make a quick announcement for those who are watching on YouTube. So, as you know, with the reboot that came out in November of 2023, we've been doing a video version every single week on YouTube. This week, though, is audio only. So the video is playing, but it's just audio. And if you normally watch on YouTube, but because there is not video, you would prefer to listen on a podcast app, just know that I am on Apple, I'm on Spotify. Anywhere that you can get a podcast, you should be able to find me. So feel free to go to an audio only app. All right, so this came about through an anonymous survey that I sent to my email list. And if you are not on my email list, you should be. You can go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/subscribe to put in your name and email, and then you will be on the list. I typically send out an email with the podcast on Tuesdays, and then sometimes I have other special announcements, things like surveys, letting you know that program dates are opening up. But if you missed that survey, that is why. And if you're on my email list and didn't fill out the survey, you can still go find the email and fill it out, because I do keep referring to it. I sent the survey out because I was trying to get a feel for where people are in their careers, what they need the most help with, because there are definitely topics where I'm passionate and I would love to share information. But also, if there are things that you guys want to hear, let me know. So the very last question on this survey was, if you had 30 minutes to pick my brain, what questions would you ask me? And I got so many great questions that's how I thought, well, let's answer some of these questions. That really wasn't the plan when I put it out, but I thought this is a great way to do this. Now, it is anonymous, so some of these questions I don't fully have the background, but I'll still try to explain it based on a few different scenarios, which might help you anyway. If you are not the person who asked the question, I pulled 6. I don't know how many we'll actually get through. You guys know I like to talk a lot. Again, hopefully this will be recurring. So I'm just going to start to go through them. And if there is a question that you would like to have asked and you're already on the email list, then go find that survey, fill it out. If you're not on the email list, you got 2 options. One is you can actually comment on any podcast episode really that's on YouTube. It's why I love YouTube, because you can actually comment. We can have a conversation. It's a way for you to engage with me. So you can post a comment to a YouTube video, letting me know what question or topic you'd love for me to address, and I might do that. Another way is if you go subscribe to my email newsletter, the next time I send out a newsletter, you can just hit reply and let us know a topic that you would be interested in. Now, I'll know who you are, but if I cover it in an Ask Me Anything video, I will not, or episode, I will not say your name. So it will remain anonymous, at least from the podcast side. Okay, let's do this. Let's dig in. The very first question that I have on the list today is, I would love to know more about your day trading. I would love to know more about your day trading. So I did 2 different episodes on this. The first was episode 185, Making Money in the Stock Market. And the second was episode 186, Building Wealth with Terry Igioma. I mean, I've talked about trading a lot off and on, but those 2 episodes specifically, I covered a lot. The comment came in, like I said, I would love to know more about your day trading. And so I'm just going to throw the question back out. What would you love to know more about? Because I'm not really sure what you'd like to know. As I have shared in other episodes, it is something that I do full time technically, and I'm studying the market. I wake up, I'm looking at the pre-market, I'm trading even as we speak right now. I have orders set up if numbers hit. I'll also go through the end of the day and do the post trading. There are a million different ways to trade stocks, short term and long term. And even within that, there are so many different approaches. I have no desire to learn all of the approaches. I don't want to be into that kind of detailed analysis. Instead, what I did was I found a mentor. And my mentor was and is Terry Igioma. And that's why I interviewed her in episode 186. She has a ton of great content out there. So you can always just look at her YouTube or just Google different podcast episodes. But she is such a great teacher, and she has her own method or her own way of trading stocks. And so for the most part, I follow that. So I learned her way of trading short-term stocks. First and foremost, I really dug in. I did all of her courses. I did the homework. I practiced. I simulated. And then I started doing it on my own. Now, as I have progressed and moved forward, I have used some different strategies based on, for example, when I was on my sabbatical and it was all I was doing like day in, day out, it allowed me to do more trading that was just like in and out, very, very fast. Because I now also am back doing the business and the podcast and other things, I can't babysit it the same way I did before. And so I've got some different approaches that I use. Now they still come from Terry, because and it's not really a system, it's just what she does, what she follows. And I'm still using the same concept and approaches. I have also done some more research, picked up on more mentors, and I allow that to somewhat determine what I'm going to do. So I'm kind of creating the way that I want to trade stocks. And so I guess that's my question is, what do you want to know? In some ways it would be like, I would love to know more about you being a lawyer. It's like, well, I would love to know more about you having a podcast. There are a million different ways we could go with that. So if you have specific questions about my day trading, feel free to ask. In the meantime, though, you just need to follow Terry. She's my mentor, and I would not recommend her if I did not believe in her. As you know, if you listen to episode 185 or 186, I am an affiliate for her work. I generally don't promote others' work and get a commission just because that's not the business model that I have. But I love her. I love her work. And so I'm always happy to promote her. She actually has, this is kind of last minute, but she actually has, I think it's like a 5-hour intensive this Saturday. If you were listening right now, like as this episode comes out, this Saturday, September 21st. And so you can sign up for that through my affiliate link at heatherjoyhubbard.com/trade. Now, that was the same affiliate link I had last time. I just keep that link updated. So even if you're listening to this after September 21st, just know that I always try to keep that link updated so that whatever she is offering at the time or whatever is coming up, you'll still be directed to the right place. So she's going to do that. It's all about taking your first trade. And then at the end of that, she will share with you more about her Stocks 101 course, I believe. And so you can sign up for that. If you are interested and you kind of look at the first trade and you're like, well, that's too basic, I would like something a little bit more advanced, then reach out and we can just get you the link for her Stocks 101. But if you've not done any kind of trading on your own outside of having an advisor, it's still worth doing this very first one, because she literally helps you set up the technology and to know which apps to use in order to do your own trading. And that's what I follow because there's no commissions on it. Anyway, that's my answer. Would love to know more about your day trading. 1, let me know exactly what you'd like to know. And 2, just go follow Terry. Go check out her stuff. Go buy her courses, heatherjoyhubbard.com/trade. Okay, so the second question is, what are the financial expectations when starting a business, and what are realistic expenses to expect? So part of that depends on the type of business that you are starting. I am going to answer this from the perspective of starting a service-based business that you could do out of your home, because we could slice and dice this a million different ways, and it's definitely going to impact your expenses. But when I started my company, it is out of my home. It is a service-based business. So I'm going to answer from that vantage point. But whoever posed this, or anyone else who's out there listening, if you have specific questions related to that or your exact situation, let me know, and I am happy to answer if I feel like I have something valuable to offer. So you can really run a business as lean as you want or as expensive as you want. And part of that is going to depend on your savings, how much you want to invest in the company, and your risk tolerance. So some people will save up a lot of money, not only to cover the income and the expenses that they're no longer going to have from whatever company or business that they are leaving to start this new one. In addition to that, they have a fund set up just to start the business itself. I don't know that I really did that too much. I think I had very little set aside for the business itself. It was very much a shoestring operation. But what I mostly had saved for was my own income, because whoever asked this question, it's a great point. Like, how do you know how many people are actually going to hire you? How easy will it be? I think part of that depends on, are you doing the exact same thing that you did before? So if, obviously law is my background. If you are working in a law firm and you have your own clients and those clients are going with you, it's really easy to say, this is the revenue that I can expect coming in because I know they're going to come with me. You're not really having to market or sell from scratch. And so you can have a reasonable expectation as to how much you're going to be making. Expenses, that's generally a totally different ballgame, because most people, we're going to stick with the law firm example. If you are a lawyer in a firm, you may not actually know all the expenses and how that works. And even if you do, your firm may look very, very different than the firm you're coming from. I came from big law, so that was a huge setup. My expenses, if I was going to have my own law firm, would look drastically different than where I came from. So that's, a totally different scenario, but you would at least know your income. For me, I was starting something brand new. And a lot of people, I think, who come to me and who are attracted to me have that same idea, right? They are either in corporate or they're a professional in a service-based firm, and they're wanting to go start their own company, not necessarily doing exactly what they do now. And so I suspect that this question is related to that. How do you know what to expect? And the truth is, you don't. You don't know what to expect. And that's where, for me, in many ways, it helps to have an entrepreneurial spirit. If you very much want the safety and security of knowing what that paycheck is going to be, or knowing that you've got a certain amount coming in every month, this is probably going to cause a lot of stress and heartache for you, and may not be the best approach for you, because that's not really what running a business looks like. Even when you've been established for a really, really long time and you're doing really, really well, cash flow and the economy and expenses, all of that is never certain. Never, never, never. And that is true for a Fortune 500 company. If, let's say, you are in big law, the firm you work for, that's not a certainty for them. In fact, there are benefits, right, to being an employee, or even if you're not an employee, let's say that you are a partner, depending on how you get paid, there is definitely a benefit to you. Generally are going to have some certainty around what you are going to bring home each and every day, month, year. The firm itself, though, is having to deal with those bigger issues of cutting expenses or doing layoffs or the bonuses or restructuring what equity partners are going to get in their draws, because someone is going to have to deal with the budget versus the actual. And once you step out as an entrepreneur, that person is you. Being willing to say, I can make projections, but I'm going to have to constantly update those projections, especially if you're starting out, because you don't have a baseline. You don't have the knowledge. My answer would be there's really no realistic expectation. In fact, I don't think there should be an expectation at all. It's more trial and error. Let's see what's going to happen. This is why a lot of people will do it on the side first before they go full time. Unlike me, who just jumps off a cliff and says, I'll figure it out. Most people don't have that risk tolerance. And so if you don't have that risk tolerance, then you probably need to work on it on the side a little bit before you get going. I do think it's important for you to know if you're starting something brand new, you're probably not going to make as much as you think you are because you are starting from scratch. And there's probably going to be expenses that you didn't anticipate, even if you give it your best. But that's okay. That's okay. My goal was always each and every year to progress, right? To not go backwards. And honestly, I generally would double my revenue more or less every year until, of course, COVID and I got sick and all of that. But that's really how that worked for me. On expenses, you can have an office, you can have a bunch of equipment, but you can also just have a computer and internet and phone, which you already have, and really do anything that you need. There are certain subscriptions. I have gotten it down to as lean as probably $1,500 a month for me, for my exact business, but that is really where it's at. And then also, I do want to mention, you really do want to build in for getting a good, strong business in place, and you want to build in marketing, some kind of marketing or advertising, because that is going to be well spent money if it is very strategic and targeted, because you do have to build that client base. And I would focus more on that than having a bunch of shiny bells and whistles. If you know the kind of business that you want to start, definitely join my Growth Accelerator Incubator. I think so many people, they listen to podcasts and they'll buy a bunch of just kind of courses and try to figure it out on their own. Y'all, I did that. The best way to fast track that is to have a true business coach who helps you. So that does not have to be me. If there is another business coach out there, you can hire them. My Growth Accelerator is really, really good. It is a small group and we dig into absolutely everything that you need to know in terms of what is your strategy? How are you going to get clients? Because based on the way you're going to market and sell, that's going to determine the things that you should be investing in. And so even if your business is not open, you could technically go ahead and do Growth Accelerator to prep for that. But you need to know what the business is coming in. Growth Accelerator is not to figure out what kind of business you want. We're starting from day one. We are working on that business. So we actually have already started the fall cohort. There will be 3 of those offered in 2025. And because they are such small group, I highly encourage you to go ahead and get in those. If you go to the website, heatherjoyhubbard.com/growth accelerator, registration is closed, but you can look at the program. And if you know that you're interested, again, if you're on my email list, just respond to an email at some point and tell us you're interested in knowing more. And we'll get you the information and dates for 2025 in case you want to go ahead and save your spot. Question number 3. What has been your business development plan? I love this so much. It changes. My business, I've had it for 10 years now. It will be 10 years in November. The business development plan has definitely changed, and I have a different plan. Often every year, it might change a little bit depending on what the focus is, what the programs are. It also changes. I look at things regularly. I always have the big vision top of mind, and then I break that down. So if you've ever listened to any of my podcasts on planning and the way I approach goals, I know the big vision, and then I break that down. So yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and I'm going to share kind of what I'm doing right now, but in many ways it relates to what I've always done, regardless of the programs, regardless of what I've been focusing on, because these are my strengths. And these are the things that energize me. They are the things that light me up and do not drain me. It makes it easy for me. In answering the question before, I was talking about Growth Accelerator, and that's a lot of what we do in that program. It's about helping people figure out what's going to work best for them. So I am more than happy to share what I do. Just know that what works for me may not work for you. Even if we had the exact same business and the exact same ideal client, because no two people are alike. So you and I are not going to be exactly alike, even if we have a ton of things in common. And so figuring out what's going to work for you may look very different than what's going to work for me. So from the very beginning, I knew that I wanted to leverage audio and video. Why? Because I love a microphone. I love the camera. I am an entertainer at heart. I am a performer at heart. And I just love to talk. Let me tell you what I don't love to do. I don't love one-on-one conversations. I am not someone who sits around and has, these really long, deep conversations with friends, or someone who just gabs and chit-chats, right? I'm not on group chats. I hate a group chat. Hate a group chat. Like, I'm not big on small talk because it's just not who I am. And I feel like we put so much emphasis on what you should do or what works for other people or the industry, like coffees and lunches and networking. That's not my thing. Other people love it, right? So for me, what I love to do more than anything is speaking. Whether that is in a microphone, whether that is on video, or whether it's, speaking through the written word in an email. I did have a blog early on and realized very quickly that the writing format it was more draining for me than the speaking format. I've always done it though, in the sense that I encourage people to sign up for my newsletter list or my different offerings, which might be a webinar. Or the very first one I did was a teleseminar. Yeah. Back in 2014 was a teleseminar to help you reach your goals for the end of the year. So in that sense, I have always used email to some type of free offering, whether that's the podcast, whether that is, again, a webinar, a master class, a free video training. That is what I have always done to get people in and to build a relationship and to nurture that relationship. And most people who end up working with me have come in through one of those ways. And they feel like they have a sense of who I am. And they just resonate with my personality because they can really sense my personality through those things. And then at that point, some people figure out right away, they're like, I've got to work with her. And then other people, it might be you, right? Who's listening. You may have been listening to me for 7 years and you've never worked with me and you may never work with me. And that's okay. But this is my main way of marketing and nurturing. In Growth Accelerator, we really talk about how you stack things to make sure that you know what you're trying to go after. So I'm always trying to track how people come into my world and buy my services. Now, people don't just find my podcast. They don't just find my videos. It is generally very strategic. Early on, I utilized Facebook ads. 10 years ago, Facebook ads looked very different than they do now. I still utilize Facebook ads to some extent, but that strategy looks very different. So there are different ways to get people into the podcast or the free offering. And I think that is a mistake that a lot of people make. They assume that if you have just something like this out there, that people will find you, and that's not true. So you got to market the thing that you're using as marketing. It's very layered. It's very stacked. It's very strategic. That is what I do because that is what I love. It is what gives me energy as opposed to deplete my energy. And for me, it's also the most effective because it is my strength and it is my passion. So that is what I have always done for my business development plan. Again, overall, because it does change. Once you get in the weeds, it definitely is moving and changing. So thank you for that great question. Okay, that's probably enough, but let's do one more because I pulled out 6. I don't want to just do 3. Let's do one more. The next one is, how do you separate your personal and business life? And I had to think about this because it's interesting. I don't really think of my personal life and my business life as separate. It feels very integrated. And I really did have to think about this. From the moment I wake up, I get my coffee, I journal, I meditate, I look at my phone, and it's all intertwined. So when I'm meditating, a lot of times it's, the things that come to me or the concerns or worries or excitement that I have, it is related to both my personal life and my business life because they just feel so intertwined. When I'm, like looking at my phone or like I'm not a big multitasker. I mean, I say that, but I don't have these set moments of now I'm in my personal life and now I'm in my business life. They're just kind of all intermixed, and I work from home. I have worked from home since the fall of 2014. So I was doing that before, COVID ever happened. And a lot of people say, like, I don't know how I would get anything done because I would be focused on the personal, but I don't have a problem just sitting down and working. I love my work, but I also don't just ignore what's happening. Like, I can go water my flowers. I can go eat lunch. I can, in the middle of the day, go work out. I don't really separate out, again, what's business, what's personal. I have so much flexibility and autonomy and freedom with the business that I have set up. And so maybe that's what allows me to do that. I will say I have a very strong boundaries. So because my background was a lawyer and because I was in big law, there were hardly any boundaries, right? That's just what's expected is depending on who you work with, your culture, how high you are in the hierarchy, you're expected to be on call 24/7. And I knew when I started my business that I was not doing that. I did not want that. And so I have structured my business in a way where people do not have access to me all the time. There is no such thing as an emergency in my business. I have had to do a lot of work around letting go of certain things that in many ways, it would totally stress me out. And part of that is, I think, going through the tumor and the sabbatical of just learning what's important in life. And I just really don't care the way I did before because I realize, as Justin on my team likes to often say, we're not heart surgeons. We're not brain surgeons. And you know what I mean? Like, okay, it's like the podcast went out late. The podcast didn't go out this week. Something went out with the wrong link. So, right? Like something didn't work. Okay, that's fine. Let's fix it. And we don't have to freak out about it. So I think I just take a different approach in how I address my business life. I will also say I take that same approach with my personal life. And so I have family members who know if it's an emergency, you need to say it's an emergency. Otherwise, like if you're calling or whatever, I'm not dropping everything. Like I'm just not. If I'm focused on the business, I'm focused on the business. I'm not looking at my phone. I'll often even have it on silent. So I have very, very strong boundaries, which I think then allows me to have so much flexibility with it being intertwined. I do try to end the day. I have an office and I try to start and end my day with the office. Like I try not to be in here for other reasons so that when I'm done, I'm done. And when I go watch TV at night with my husband or we go do things, I'm often not looking at my phone. In fact, I often don't look at it even before I go to sleep intentionally because I don't want to see something from family or work that's then going to like cause me to think at night. I'm a big believer in unplugging so that you can have a really, really good night's sleep without, worrying about a million different things. And I don't have children. And that I think makes a huge difference. So I just want to state that. I recognize that is a privilege and a luxury that I chose. And so I'm not going to apologize for it, but I do think it makes a difference. But I also know plenty of friends with children who also have very strong boundaries. So it is possible, depending on what you want and what your personality is. So I think that's my answer to the question is I don't know that it's separated that much. I think it's actually pretty integrated. But because I have such strong boundaries, it's not like business takes over my personal life in a way that I don't have one because I do have a personal life. I have a great personal life. So, oh my goodness, this was so much fun. I loved answering these questions. And like I said, I just got 4 answered, but I have so many more from the survey. And again, I would love to hear from you. So if you're not on the email list, get on the email list. You can also go over to YouTube and leave a comment, but let me know what your questions are and perhaps I will answer one in an upcoming Ask Me Anything episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, let me know that too, because when I get feedback as to what you like, what you really resonate with, it helps me to know to keep doing more. All right, have a great week, everyone, and I will see you back here next week with a special episode about my recent trip to Harlem, New York. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.